I stumbled on my mentor, Richard Bandler, who is the co-creator of Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Okay.
I don't know how deeply you want to dive into NLP, but essentially it is two things. It's a model for looking at human excellence, extracting out the elements of that, breaking it down into its component parts, and then teaching other people how to take it on. And then the other
Okay.
thing is a model for using language to create hypnotic effects, to put people in states of deep focus, deep suggestibility. Some would say compliance. There are ways to create compliance, which is a very controversial thing we'll get into. And so I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that by using this stuff, I could actually get women who used to be out of my league. And about 15 years in, I started getting these emails from clients or former students of my speed seduction stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, I built a beautiful family and met my wife using your skill sets that you taught me. And now I'm using it in business, and my sales have gone up 30, 40, 50%. They've tripled, they've quadrupled. And I'm not only got laid using your stuff, now I'm getting paid using your stuff. So I went
Mm.
into my mad scientist language lab and took a year mapping this over to sales. And I began training anyone who I could get my hands on. I mean, anyone. People would call me on the phone trying to sell me stuff. I would sell them back on getting into some very, at the beginning, low price coaching. Listen, I wanted to experiment on and with anybody and everybody I could. And as the years grew, I began to refine it to the point where now I only work with people who are at the top 10% of the game, maybe 20%. But here's the distinction: they've hit a wall. The stuff that used to work and make and bring big results is now barely moving the needle. We can go into that. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
feeling that frustration, hitting that ceiling, and they're wondering what's going on, what's wrong, and they're ready to bust past that, reassert their dominance in the market, and get back to where they actually go where they really want to be in a relatively short amount of time. So that's who I work with now. So this is the other thing that's lacking in traditional sales trainings. Not rapport, I get it, but the problem is focus. Nowadays, you don't have the old time you used to have, spend 10, 15 minutes establishing rapport.
Yeah.
You don't have it
Yeah.
because your prospect doesn't have the focus. You have to create focus before rapport. And so I have some specific phrases and words I'll give. I'm happy to share it with the audience today, if you'll allow me the time.
Certainly.
So this works across all platforms, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-many, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter what industry you're in. And this is going to sound a little strange because it is strange. That therein lies the power, because it is so different. If I were beginning a sales presentation, I wouldn't say, well, today I'm going to show you XYZ. And what may excite you the most is it does X 10% better and brings returns, and it's an easy to use platform. Your employees will enjoy it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let's get started. Who's excited? High
Right.
five your neighbor. God, all the stuff that makes me want to kick someone,
Yeah.
punch someone in the head. So instead, I'd say something like this. Before I have what I call implied relationship words. Before we begin our exploration
Okay.
together today, and I just invite you to please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is made. Now, listen to those words. We, not before I
Mm-hmm.
show you, before we, that's two suggestions of togetherness. Before we begin our, that's another word. So that's three stack suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Exploration. Alex, exploration is a profoundly hypnotic word.
Mm.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you use that word in the proper context, in the right order, it's very powerful. And here's why. First of all, explorations imply novelty. The brain is drawn towards novelty. But equally importantly, for every exploration, there must be a leader, correct? And for every leader, there must be what?
Followers.
Student? Exactly. So as soon as on the unconscious, subconscious level, your prospect gets the implied suggestion that they are your followers, followers go beyond rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Followers give you clients
Mm.
because you are the authority. If you define authority as someone who has certainty where you do not, then you become the unquestionable authority. And this sets up the frame, the emotional filter, the subconscious filter for the entire rest of your selling process. So that anything you do, as far as your facts, figure, data, offer, is filtered through that. If you don't hold the frame that you're the leader, that you
Mm-hmm.
don't need them, then there's a power dynamic in any human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to acknowledge it or are unaware of it, whether it's sales, sex, love. There's always a power dynamic, and it's either going to be you're in the power seat,
Mm-hmm.
or it will default to the other person being in the power seat. Very rarely, thank God, whatever that runs the place, you meet at a place of genuine equity and equality and mutual sharing of the power.
Mm.
It's given up, it's taken back. That's very, very rare. So
Mm.
you have to establish that frame early on. So if I can unpack that with specific languaging,
Mm-hmm.
if someone said to one of my clients, "Why should we go with your firm?" I would most people would begin to show, well, look, here's our statistics. We've grown the money. We've managed this much portfolio. They'd start bragging, which is a disguised form of begging.
Mm-hmm.
Bragging is in the wrong, it's a disguised form of begging. Bragging equal begging.
Mm.
Instead, I teach to say something very vague, something along the lines of, well, Mr. Jones, I can't be the one to say all the ways you might stop and find the reasons that feel right for you to go with us. But as that's taken place, I can only invite you to share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision's being made. Now, what did I just do? I was so vague, I threw them back into a search into their own unconscious and set the frame that they have to give me the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it, Alex. I didn't say, well, I'm not the one who needs to convince you. You need to convince me. You give me your reasons. I didn't say that,
Mm-hmm.
but I suggested it. I set the power frame, turned it all around when the client or potential client was trying to do it to me. So, first and foremost, your state of mind.
Okay.
What state of mind do you want to be in before you take any action? That's the first thing.
Okay.
Everything flows from your state. That's number one, and we can unpack these one by one.
Yeah, please.
Second, don't think of the behaviors that you want from the other person. Buy your course, sign up for your sales training, whatever it is. Think in terms of what emotional states you want them in, such that it is natural for them to give you those behaviors very easily or with as little effort as possible on your part.
Mm.
Everything flows from state and emotion. So that's very, very important. Learn to create states and first and foremost, focus. They have to be able to focus on you. They have to learn to trust themselves. See, know, like, and trust used to be enough. It's still necessary, but it's not sufficient. You have to learn to rapidly get the prospect to trust themselves to make a good decision. Otherwise, and this is why if you're listening to me out there, you're at the top 10%, you're or 20%, and you're just barely moving the needle and you're running harder to stay in the same place,
Mm.
you're probably missing that element. How do you create the prospect a state of self-trust in that prospect very rapidly?
Mm.
States of focus, states of self trust, states of clarity, and sometimes states of confusion. In any good sale, in any good seduction, there's a time to be confusing, even shocking, and
Mm.
confrontational,
Mm.
which is again contrary and counterintuitive.
Right.
I can unpack that if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, let's start with state. So let's say I'm going into an interaction, and how am I going to prime my state? And what am I? What's my goal? What am I shooting for, essentially?
I'm shooting for body relaxed,
Okay.
body relaxed neutrality, meaning I'm interested in the sale, I'm invested in my skills, I'm not overly enthusiastic. God
Interesting.
bless Tony Robbins. He's brought NLP to the entire world. And Tony, I think, fundamentally makes a mistake. Not for him. If you're in front of an arena of 40,000 people, you need to keep that energetic peak state up.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But if you're in a peak state of enthusiasm and emotion, and you're dealing with a prospect or an audience, or you're doing it through a recorded medium like video sales letter, you're going to freak people out.
Mm.
What matters is neutrality, being grounded in your body, breathing from the belly, turning down the internal dialogue. This is why I teach meditation techniques. If you're going ratchet, there's only so much real estate in consciousness. So if you're going ratchet in your head with that internal dialogue, you have to learn how to quiet it. And I teach 2 or 3 techniques to do that. So the internal dialogue is turned down, you're focused outward, your body is relaxed, your beliefs are I'm either going to make this sale or I'll learn what I need to learn to do better next time. Second, I choose, I can, will, and do choose and decide the meaning I extract and the learnings I get from each and every interaction I have with a prospect.
Mm.
And third, invested in the skill and just interested in the sale. And a breakfast of bacon and eggs, as I like to say, the pig is invested, the chicken is interested.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you're especially in sales, but I guess seduction also, you're not identifying with the result of this thing. You're just saying, "Hey, this is interesting. I gained information about, what worked, what didn't work." Um, that's
Update.
yeah.
You know, the Mossad, which is arguably the Israeli intelligence service, which is arguably the best in the world, teaches its agents that when something goes south, update. I just got an update,
Mm,
or I just got an upgrade. Now I'm blanking on whether it's update or upgrade.
mhm,
I think it's update. Just got an update.
mhm. So you need to
Not I failed.
reconfigure your model for, okay, that particular thing did not
Right.
work. All right. So it's sort of almost emotionless. I've heard it. There's a book, The Inner Game of Tennis, and they say, if you hit a ball out of bounds, um, for your opponent, that was a good thing. That was a win. And for the referee, that was neutral. So for you to say, oh, it was a bad thing, well, it's like that's your internal viewpoint of that. So it sounds like you're kind of getting at, like, don't take
And
that internal viewpoint that it's a negative necessarily.
that it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to have processes to make it real in your neurology.
Okay.
And again, I think the distinction I have is having come from a background of training men who were so damaged and so traumatized, where I had to manage my state or I would get exhausted by feeling their trauma and take them out of it into a neutral state, training them to control their own neurology, the most fucked up, damaged people you can imagine, bringing them into a state of relaxed, neutral information gathering confidence, having learning confidence, not performance confidence.
Mm,
So people talk about confidence, and particularly what I teach my VIP sales clients is this: there's different kinds of confidence. There's performance confidence. You've walked that tight wire 10,000 times. So even though you're cautious on every walk, you have a reasonable expectation based on a huge pool of data that you'll do it right the next time.
mhm,
The problem is you can't have performance confidence if you're new or if the market is changing so rapidly. What you used to do is just barely moving that needle.
mm,
Remember that I'll keep coming back. So instead, I teach learning confidence, where you absolutely know through techniques I teach that you can learn from your mistakes rapidly.
mm,
Instead of taking 3 steps forward and then sliding back down the first time something goes south. So If you ever felt that personal improvement feels like a drag or it's difficult or there's a part of you that's self sabotaging, it's not true. You're not a self sabotager or a loser. You just have a shitty learning system. You're
Mm.
learning by dwelling on your mistakes. Alex, you ever make a mistake and you dwell on it?
Sure.
Here's what's happening. You're not doing that to hurt yourself. Your brain is trying to make meaning of what you're doing. But unintentionally, whatever you dwell upon, whatever you rehearse in your mind over and over by dwelling on it with a big emotional charge, especially linked to one of those three buttons ego, money, sex,
Mm.
your brain can't tell the difference between what you're dwelling on and what you're rehearsing for it to do. So is it any surprise that the next time you're in the same situation, it keeps repeating the behavior?
Mm.
No, because you programmed it to do it. Not because you're a bad person or you lack some mysterious substance called self-esteem and you're 5 quarts low and some coach has to drill a hole in the top of your head metaphorically and fill your tank up
Mm.
and charge you a shit ton of money. But because you have a shitty learning system. I've never approached a woman in my life. I never approach. I only extend the gift of my powerful masculine presence and extend opportunities to connect with me in fun and powerful ways. Look at the language. Look at how our language fucks up our behavior.
Mm.
The minute you say cold, it implies a gap between you and that person emotionally, energetically. It implies that they're going to reject you. And when you say approach, it's saying, there's a distance between us. They're in a different boat. They're in a superior level than I am. They're going to give me my self worth, my value, like you're a beggar. You're
Mm.
not begging for coin, you're begging for sex. But if you say, I offer the gift of my grounded, powerful, joyful, masculine presence, and I extend opportunities to connect with me in fun and powerful ways, you can't be afraid when you're extending an opportunity. You're extending a gift.
Mm.
They don't exist in the same world.
Mm.
So I am not selling. I'm extending an opportunity to expand the range of what you can do and to do it with a lot more ease than you ever thought imaginable.
Mhm. I saw or I heard you say, you're not seeking, behavior, you're seeking emotions out of the person. So what does that look like when you enter the
Yeah.
interaction?
Yeah. So again, if I'm going into a sales situation, first, I have to be in the right state. That state of neutrality, outward focus, my mind is quiet, and I teach techniques for that.
Mhm.
That's first. So I'm in an information gathering state rather than an outcome pressure state.
'Kay.
Second thing is I need to create that state of focus in them very rapidly through a process of suggestion. I need to create that state of self trust in them. I need to create that state of compliance. I would say, before we begin this exploration together today, I don't know all the ways you might stop and naturally feel a growing focus the more you grow interested in what it is we're sharing. But as that's taking place, I invite you, please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision is being made. The key there is those last three words. The 4 words, a great decision is being made.
Mm.
It's so vague. I didn't say your a great decision that you're going to make to buy my product, sign up for my software as a service, whatever it is. I didn't say that. I said a great decision is being made. It's so vague and even so confusing that the human mind does not like confusion.
Mhm.
So it will go into a state of suggestibility. The unconscious mind will have to begin to churn and make sense of it. And the unconscious mind will go, okay, a great decision is going to be for me to move forward, and I'm going to do it because of this, that, and the other thing. But consciously, I'm not going to be aware of it.
Mhm.
Consciously, they just get a vague sense that they want to move ahead. Now, you're still going to run into all the problems of self trust, a little bit. You're also creating self trust. When you say a great decision is being made, the implication is they can trust themselves to make that decision.
Mhm.
I'm not saying it. I said, Mr. Smith, As you continue to focus on me, I'm going to have you count. I'm going to count backwards from 3, 2, 1. And when I do, you'll enter a state of compliance and self trust, unlike anything you've had before. 1, 2, 3, wake up. That's bullshit nonsense. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have the same hypnotic effect through the skillful, artful use of confusion and suggestion. Confusion at the right time is extremely powerful because there's times where you have to have the prospect um, fill in the blanks for themselves. Here's another fundamental core principle I teach. Whatever you can get the prospect to imagine for themselves will be perceived by them as being their own thoughts and decisions, and therefore they cannot resist it. Understanding the frame that you're never selling your product or service, you're selling decisions and good feelings about decisions.
Okay.
If you felt a little ick factor around selling, then consider yourself a decision service technician.
Mm.
It's a great reframe.
Mm.
It's a great reframe because in a sense that's what you're doing. And also the idea that you're expanding consciousness. You're not just getting suggestions into the client's mind, you're expanding their consciousness to include your ideas and new possibilities. The idea that selling is about states of consciousness.
Mm.
So I teach the concept, then I take these people who are already doing extremely well, but they want something unconventional, and I teach them how to. I don't change sales processes. I don't do it. I don't touch it. I take their already successful sales process and I show them how to inject these concepts and these specific language patterns into each stage.
Mm.
And my favorite part is handling objections because that's where you do a lot of a great deal of beautiful hypnotic work. You do pattern interrupts.
Mm.
One example is that thing of I need more time to think it over. I showed you the pattern interrupt there. Or if they say it's too expensive, they're expecting an argument or let me, well, I understand, but have you considered the return on investment? I'll shock them. I'll say expensive compared to a steak dinner. It's beyond expensive. It's an obscenity, which creates what? And understand with the right agent, you're not paying a fee. You're investing in skills,
Mm.
the very skills that you need to get the returns that you really want. That on some deep level, you recognize it's the only way to do it.
Mm.
So I create those states of suggestibility by interrupting the pattern and or redefining the meaning. I teach all these things, pattern interrupts. So when they say I need to talk to my spouse, I say I agree. It's important that they also get on board with us so they too can see a great decisions being made.
Mm.
So thinking about it like that, what's the best way we can get them on our team?
So then you two are working as a team together now, and this person's joined your team, and now they're like, well, I think what Dave would want is he would want to understand the return. Okay, got it. That's good.
Okay, so why don't we? Do you think would it be possible for you to naturally feel comfortable and enthusiastic? Hear the suggestion? Feel comfortable, naturally feel comfortable and enthusiastic. Getting them on the phone, like maybe now, or what would some other time work better? Now, instead of feeling pressured, because you've framed it that you're already on the same team, and it's not a matter of pressuring the wife or the husband, it's about getting them or the significant other. It's just about getting them on the team. The subtitle of my book is How to Get Your Prospects to Convince Themselves to Buy.
Mm.
That's what ultimately everything I teach is leading to. The
Yeah.
prospect convinces themselves